Hello and welcome to another video of circuit tutorials. I'm Bjornafar and today I'll show you how to make a punching system in Rec Room with this simple tutorial. So follow along. Here are all the chips we're going to need. You can just spawn them in one by one and put them like I've done. Alright, first open your Maker Pen, go to Home, press Backpack, and press Use on your Maker Pen. Now pick up your Maker Pen, open up your tools, and let's configure our event receiver. Change the event to Update. Now go on Tools and then use the Connect tool. First, wire the origin to the right hand position, and the collisions list into the list get count, and the count output into the greater than, and then the B value you're going to change to 1. Now you're going to wire the collisions into list get element 1 and change the index to 0, and then the next one you're going to wire it up and then change the index to 1. Then you're just going to wire the values to the collision data get player, and then you're going to wire up the player get is local up to the player get is local, and then into the if value, and then you're going to wire the 1, which is the index number 1 collision, into then, and the index 0 into else. Now wire in the result from the greater than into the if chip, and wire the output of the overlap sphere into this if chip, then wire the then into this if chip, and then wire the condition of this if chip into the AND, then have out of the then input into the float variable, and the output of the float variable into the velocity set, and then the target is going to be the output of the if value, and then here on the float variable you're going to set this to the sum of the add, and you're going to wire the top value into the time get precise seconds, and you're going to change this. I'm just going to change this to 0.5 or 1. You could change it to 1 also. This will be your cooldown for how many seconds like in between you can punch. Now this less or equal should be wired into A, and then this float variable should be wired into the B. Wait, no, sorry, my fault, it's opposite. Like that. Now you're going to wire that input into true, and then you're going to wire this not value into the AND, and the is valid into the not, and then the offhand object. This is my right hand, so if it's the right hand, maybe this would be for you. You can check this by just grabbing an object like a dodgeball, and you can check which one of these two hands is your right hand. But you're just going to wire that into the AND. Now configure your AND chip, and then wire the greater or equal chip into this, and then the A into the vector get magnitude, and then these two vectors go into the hand velocity as shown. There we go. And then wire those two together. Now your multiply is going to be wired up with the vector get magnitude. This multiply will be the hit strength, so it will be like a multiplier for how hard you hit, because how this system works is depending on how hard you hit with your fist, it will punch them even further. So you wire this into the multiplier on the velocity set, and then the velocity right here is going to go into the vector 3 normalize. Now this output is going to go into the play audio at position, and this SFX will go into the audio. Now you can configure your SFX and choose an audio. I've chosen this one, the basketball player hit, which sounds like the dodgeball hit sound, and I wired that into the audio. And then the position is going to be your right hand's position. Alright, now we have the base circuit set up. So if you want to activate it, you will wire this update into the overlap sphere like so, and then it will work. So you will then also have to change your radius to something like 0.4 because this will be your hitbox. So yeah. And this greater or equals chip will be how hard you have to swing your hand around for it to detect that you're trying to punch. So I'm just gonna change this to something like 4. Now I will explain how the overlap sphere works. Imagine that the overlap sphere is like a hitbox for your hand, basically a collision that checks when you hit someone. I've made this like circle thing to show you how this kind of works. So this changes size, right? So let's say the smallest size is 0.1 and the biggest size is around 0.9, I think. So depending on how big you change this radius, this circle that is around your hand will also change in size. So basically, if a player is entered inside of this circle, it will detect them as being inside the collision. Let me explain how all of these circuits work. So the goal with this circuit system is that we want to have a collision around our hand that detects if a player is currently inside of it, and then we want it to move them with the velocity that we're swinging at and the direction at that. So the way we do that is by using the overlap sphere, and we update it with the update event, so it gets placed on our hand every frame. So it's basically setting the position on our hand of this sphere, and then the radius is how big the hitbox is. Then we're getting if there's more than one player, because you're always going to be hit by this collision. You're always going to be inside the collider. So we're checking if there's another player that's entered, basically if there's 2 or more. Then we check the first person and the second person. We check if the first person that is inside the collision is ourselves. If it is, then it should get the other player, because we want to punch the other player and not ourselves. Now, if somehow that the first player that is inside the collision is the person you're trying to punch, these two values will be switched around. So basically this is the person I'm trying to punch and this is me. So if this player is local, it will basically detect if this is me, then it will output the person I'm trying to punch. But if these two are opposite, this will be false, and it will then punch the person we're trying to punch. So this will make it so we will not be able to punch ourselves at all in any possible way. And then we get to the cooldown. So this float gets the times precise seconds, which is just a value that goes up by 1 every second. And we're adding our cooldown in seconds, so 0.5 seconds. So every 0.5 seconds you're able to punch someone, right? So that's what we're adding to the variable. And then we're checking if this value is less than the time precise seconds. So it's going to output as true because this is less than that. But as soon as we wait, hold up, I'm just going to unwire it here because I have no target, so it will output as false. But if I change the cooldown to, for example, 2, and I execute this, this will be false, but after 2 seconds it will turn true again, because, you know, this becomes less than the current time. So this is a cooldown that is impossible to break. And after that, since it's a cooldown, this becomes false, so you cannot punch anymore. So the time has to pass before you can punch again. And when you punch, it will get the target of the player, and it will get the velocity, so the direction. We're normalizing this vector so it becomes into a direction. And then we're getting the magnitude, basically how fast we're swinging our hand, and we're multiplying it to make it more strength, basically, so we hit further. And then here we have the AND chip. What we're checking is basically if we're holding something here, because we don't want to be able to punch someone if we're holding something. And we're also checking if our hand is swinging fast enough for us to be able to punch someone. So we're checking if the cooldown has passed, if we're not holding something, and if we're swinging our hand fast enough while somebody's in the collision. Because if all of those conditions are met, then it will then punch the player, and then after it sets the velocity, it'll just play the hit noise. So that's how all of this works. Now if you want it for the other hand, you're just, for the left hand, you're going to clone the entire thing, and then you will have to replace these right hand position and right hand velocity with the left hand's velocity and position. So we get it for the left hand, and then you wanna, get this is valid and not, and make it for the other hand also, to make sure that we don't punch while we're holding something. So that's how this punching system works. So now I'll demonstrate it. I brought another tutor, IPC here, who's gonna help me showcase the way the punching system works. So if I punch IPC, he'll be flown in the direction, and if he punches me, I'll fly in the direction he punched me. So over here on the multiply, we can change the value to the strength of the punch. So if I change it to 15 instead of 5, and I punch IPZ, it should be way stronger now. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I really appreciate it. If you got any questions or have any ideas for other tutorials I should make, please write it down in the comments in the video. And thank you so much for IPZ for helping with this video to be able to demonstrate it. I couldn't finish this video without him. So, see you guys in the next tutorial.